The 90s were prime time for BBC period dramas. Well acted, well crafted, and they just hit that perfect balance. Solid productions, still historically grounded but not overly stylized. And somehow, a bunch of them have slipped under the radar. So, let's fix that. Here are 8 underrated period dramas from the 90s you should absolutely be watching. This one's based on Samuel Richardson's Clarissa, or The History of a Young Lady, which, if you've never heard of it, is an absolute monster of a novel, over 1,400 pages. But don't worry, you don't need to read the whole thing to enjoy this adaptation. A young heiress is pressured by her family to marry a truly repulsive man. She refuses, escapes, and ends up in the hands of someone even worse. Enter Sean Bean, playing the dangerously charming Mr. Lovelace. This was a big budget production, over £3 million, and it shows. Shot in real country houses, with some exteriors filmed in London, they even built a full 3-story Georgian house inside Ealing Studios just for the series. This one's based on Anne Bronte's novel, one of the earliest feminist works in English literature. And this adaptation absolutely does it justice. Tara Fitzgerald is incredible as the heroine, playing her with the perfect mix of strength and vulnerability. Toby Stephens, who's always great, has this mix of headstrong arrogance and raw emotional depth that just makes the romance work. And then there's Rupert Graves, playing the charismatic villain so well that by the end, you almost find yourself siding with him. Almost. BBC period dramas always bring in the best actors, and this one is no exception. It's beautifully shot, completely immersive, and, unlike some other adaptations, it doesn't feel overly melodramatic. It just feels real. Instead of a movie or a mini-series, Covington Cross was a full medieval drama series. 13 episodes set in 14th century England. And if you like knights, castles, and family intrigue, this show had it all. It followed the Grey family, a widowed nobleman and his kids, dealing with everything from romance to war. And while it wasn't strictly accurate, the producers even admitted they went for a generic medieval time period instead of pinpointing an exact year, it still felt grounded. Visually, it was stunning. Gorgeous scenery, strong performances, and it actually had heart. The problem? It didn't really fit into any one category. It wasn't historical enough for hardcore medieval fans, but it was maybe too historical for mainstream audiences. So, it faded into obscurity. But for anyone who likes medieval dramas with a bit of adventure, it's worth digging up. If you love upstairs, downstairs, this is one to check out. Created by the same team, the House of Eliott follows 2 sisters in 1920s London who go from being broke and overlooked to running one of the city's top fashion houses. It's got everything: family drama, romance, business struggles, and of course, fashion. And the production design is insane. Costumes, sets, cars, antiques, every frame just feels like the 1920s. No shortcuts, no modern compromises. You're fully immersed in the era. It could be a little soapy at times. That was part of the charm. The characters were engaging, the storylines kept you hooked, and the whole thing just had a kind of warmth and authenticity that made it irresistible. It's a shame it only lasted 3 seasons. This is a movie that probably shouldn't have worked. At least, that's what the BBC and Thames Television thought. It was made for TV, and neither of them believed in it enough to fund a theatrical release. But guess what? It ended up being one of the highest-earning British films in US theaters that year. It's a sharp, darkly funny story about a young woman, played by Kate Beckinsale, who moves in with her eccentric relatives in Sussex and immediately decides to fix their miserable lives. And yeah, she's a little too good at it. It's based on a novel that was written as a parody of overly romanticized rural dramas, and the humor is cutting. Like the kind of dialogue you'll be quoting for days. The script is slick, the performances are fantastic, and if you like your humor a little offbeat, but still warm at its core, this one's for you. This one's got everything you'd want from a great period drama. A rich, layered story, a fantastic cast, and enough costumes and hairstyles to put Pride and Prejudice to shame. Literally, this production used over 1,000 costumes and up to 40 different hairstyles for each leading lady. Now, Wives and Daughters isn't as talked about as the BBC's Pride and Prejudice miniseries, but it should be. It's based on Elizabeth Gaskell's novel, and while she might not be as famous as Austen or Dickens, she was one of the major writers of her time. The story follows Molly Gibson, played by Justine Waddell, as she navigates family drama, love, society, and all the complexities of life in 19th century England. The cast is stacked: Michael Gambon, Bill Patterson, Penelope Wilton, Francesca Annis, and every single performance is pitch perfect. If you think period dramas are all polite conversations and tea parties, this one will change your mind real fast. Moll Flanders is wild. It's the story of a woman who just wants to be a loving wife. But instead, she ends up stealing, conning, and seducing her way through life. 5 husbands, countless scandals, and one big mystery about her origins. There's a reason it got an 18+ rating in the UK. Plenty of nudity, and some people even argued that the explicit scenes overshadowed the actual story. But if you're watching for the performances, you won't be disappointed. Alex Kingston is phenomenal as Moll, and you've also got Daniel Craig and Diana Rigg in there.
My religion is to love what is good and beautiful when I see it. But I'm a rebel. I don't feel bound as you do to submit to what I do not like.
This is one of the great literary adaptations. George Eliott's Middlemarch is over 800 pages long, massive, complex, packed with character detail, and somehow this series managed to deliver all of it without feeling rushed or watered down. The story takes place during the Industrial Revolution, following a group of people trying to find meaning and purpose in a rapidly changing world. It's got romance, ambition, politics, heartbreak, basically everything that makes a great drama. And visually, it's stunning. The period detail is incredible. The costumes are authentic, and every single shot is carefully composed without feeling overly elaborate.